someone who effectively like solved real estate to really make the business work for him.
Do the things that only you can do and surround yourself with people who can do everything else. Every time you get a listing, it comes with five opportunities. It's the whole psychology of why people often underprice a property and get multiple offers because market value always finds itself. It's not to convince people to buy or sell with us. Our objective is to identify as best we can the five-star prospects.
All right. Well, welcome to the Leads Are Shit. Today is a very special episode where we have the usuals here, but we also have Dean Jackson. Now, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a few things that people have probably come into contact with or used before or heard of that they wouldn't necessarily know comes from you. Part of
Mm.
that is like Andrew's every like second sentence from Andrew. A lot of people don't understand that that's all from Dean.
Okay.
But the other things would be the squeeze page. So
Uh-huh.
landing page, squeeze page combos. That
Hmm.
was started with you.
That's right.
The other thing was listing multiplier
Yes.
I love that one.
One of my favorite.
and
Uh,
the 9-word email.
Yes.
And I think that one of the ways that people should kind of get to know you as someone who effectively like solved real estate to really make the business work for him
Hmm.
would be to ask you, what does your hat mean? For those people just listening, Dean is wearing a hat that has a picture of a cow on it.
Hmm.
And this is something that's become a little bit of a symbol for Dean.
That's true. I created a concept that we call the self-milking cow. And the idea is that most realtors and entrepreneurs reach a point where they're frustrated because they're trying to be a self-milking cow. They're trying to make the milk and pasteurize it and package it and take it to market and send out the invoices and sweep up around the shop. But the moment that they realize that they can do something that other people can't do, which is make milk, then that frees them to just focus on making the milk and surrounding themselves with farmers who can do every other thing that isn't making milk. So that's kind of been a metaphoric or symbolic like reminder to do the things that only you can do and surround yourself with people who can do everything else. So if you look at real estate, for an example, the things that only you can do or the highest level things that you want to do is, negotiating contracts and meeting with people who want to list their house or, you know, picking, helping people if you do showings, working with people who want to buy a house right away. Those things are the high value things. Every other thing in real estate could really be done by other people. And so we try kind of look at surrounding yourself with people and doing the things that are the highest value. That's kind of so this has always been the reminder to kind of embrace your bovinity and just do the things that only you can do.
yeah. I always appreciate the different analogies because I was like, for example, like Chuck Charlton, who we both know well.
Mhm.
I was with him recently at a mastermind, and he was talking about candling. And as
Yeah,
he's explaining it, I was like,
handle it. Yeah.
"That's the Dean. That's got to be from Dean."
That is funny.
Yeah, so it was a good one. And then there's a few like that where like you've come in and like done them, and I've been like, it just works every time too. Like the 9-word
Mm.
email is one of those things where I always quote you because you and I've had this joke before where it's like you're probably the most like stolen person by speakers on stages when they talk about marketing.
Mhm.
As like
It's
I've been
so
to so many events.
It's so funny though that some of these things are so out there that
Yeah.
uh no matter what, even if people don't give attribution, there's always somebody coming in the comments,
Yeah.
calling it out, and
Well,
so
some
it's
of them
funny
don't
to
even
think
realize it's
about.
you by the time it's gotten to
Right,
that, right? Like I was at
right.
the event one time and like it was someone's 40-minute of their 60 minutes was basically just Dean Jackson.
Oh man.
And afterwards I was like, "Oh, have you like coached with him or like trying to?" He's like, "I don't even know who that is."
That's
And
so
I was like,
funny.
But like
I love
I
it.
even brought up like handling in it and the 9-word email and all those things. And I was like, there's no
Wow.
way you haven't heard of Dean. He's like, sorry, I I was
Okay,
like,
wait a second. If
I had to learn
candling
that.
is so, it sounds like other people are playing Dean's songs. Like you walk
Yeah,
into a club and you're like, "Oh, wait a second, that guy's rocking a Dean Jackson song."
Yeah,
Um,
true.
and so, can you tell us a little bit more about candling, since that's something that
yeah.
like
So
leads
this
out?
is so this was a thing, and that's that's a um, part of a lead conversion strategy. So if you want, I can kind of go, I can tell the stuff that leads up to that because it's important. Most of the time, what I see with lead conversion is that people are taking a very short-term focus on it. When they're doing advertising, they're typically taking what I call an expense-based approach, and they're running ads, hoping that somebody will respond to the ad today. They'll come out and look at houses this weekend and they'll buy one on Monday. That's kind of the what people are looking for. And if that does happen, then they say, oh, well, those are good leads. But if somebody doesn't return their call or they don't return their text or they don't immediately buy, they think that those are bad leads. And everybody's very front end oriented, only looking for, the ones who are ready right now. And in all fairness, there's only two time frames. It's now or not now. So I don't look in terms of like now or long term leads. But what I really started finding out was there's a lot of variation when you generate leads. Like, there's a lot of some people have better success than others, and typically those are the ones that are able to nurture a longer term relationship with people. And so I really started looking into this, and I found I'm doing like high level, like academic case studies and all these things to find what's happening at the highest levels on lead conversion. And I found a company that does, or a study from a company that does inquiry handling on an enterprise level for all kinds of like Fortune 1000 companies, and they would process millions of leads a year. And what they found, they would do something that was really interesting. They did what they called "Did you buy" surveys. And so they would take a sampling of people who inquired 18 months ago, and they would call them up and they would just ask one question. They'd say, Taylor, you came to the home show, you inquired about faucets. Did you buy any faucets? Not did you buy any Kohler faucets or what's it going to take to get you in some faucets today? It's just, did you buy the thing that you inquired about? And what they found was that just over half of the people who inquire about anything will buy what they've inquired about within 18 months. But only 15% of them will do it in the first 90 days. So I really set that up as my kind of guidance for the lead conversion expectations that I have with things. And I like to make things as financial instruments and statistically repeatable. So I always take, conservative. So I'll take a bundle of 100 leads. And rather than say 90 days, I say, or 18 months, I'd said 2 years, 100 weeks, and it lowered it to 50%. So that's the expectation that I think objectively, and we've seen it play out now, that if we were to tag people and look at what happens over the next 100 weeks, that half of them will have bought or sold a house if they've inquired about that. So having that kind of as a come from, knowing that those leads are there and objectively they're good leads. I always have to, preface that with people that when they're asking, are they good leads? What they're really asking is the subjective version of that. They're saying their version of a good lead is someone who answers the phone the first time they call them, is waiting for their call, is ready to go, and will buy a house this weekend. That's a good
Sitting there like,
lead.
is Taylor ready to call? It's him. It's
Exactly.
him.
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
Yeah.
but you have also established a criteria for leads, right?
Yes.
Like,
Uh-huh.
what does it take to be a five-star lead?
Well, there's the thing. So if we're looking that over 100 weeks is our expectation, I measure the value of something. I try and get people to take a capital investment approach versus an expense-based approach. And so the capital investment is an investment in that asset of a bundle of 100 leads, right? So you get 100 leads, and let's say it costs, just for round numbers, $5 a lead. You've invested $500 in 100 people that our expectation is that if we just tagged them and looked at 100 weeks, that half of them will have done something. So now it's on you to find which of those ones are going to be the ones that buy or sell, and how can we bond with them in a way that they will choose us. So I break it into segments: the first 100 hours, the first 100 days, and the 100 weeks. That's what we're looking at in terms of these. So in the first 100 hours, what we can do, it's not to convince people to buy or sell with us. Our objective is to identify as best we can the five-star prospects. And those are people who are willing to engage in a dialogue. They're friendly and cooperative. They know what they want. They know when they want it, and they'd like us to help them. Those are the 5 criteria that we have for five-star prospects. So some people are going to be willing to engage. Some we might miss. We might cross paths. They might not respond to the email or whatever. That doesn't make them not a five-star prospect. I mean, it doesn't make them an objectively good prospect. It's just unknown. So where chicken candling comes in is if you are incubating chickens, which is a real thing. It takes 21 days to incubate a chicken. And what you're supposed to do between day 7 and 9 is candle the egg, put a light up to. I remember seeing this as a kid watching cartoons where they would hold the chicken up to a candle and you see the dancing chicken inside the thing. So what you're supposed to do with the chicken candling is candle the egg, and there'll be 3 outcomes that you'll observe. It'll either be what they call a grower, which is you could see the forming of a chicken in there. So you keep nurturing or keep incubating those, that's going to be fine. The second outcome is they're a yolker, which is a unfertilized egg. It's never going to turn into a chicken, so you can take it out and eat it. Or they are a quitter, which started out forming a chicken but didn't make it, and there's just a ring around the bottom of the chicken, of the egg. And you take those out because they'll turn into rotten eggs. And so you're left with who are the viable chickens to go forward. So I started overlaying that as an addition to our five-star prospect, because you can only tell whether somebody's a five-star prospect if they're willing to engage at the first level. But through observation, we can see whether you have a viable chicken in there by doing our own version of chicken candling, which is to see, did they leave a viable email address? Like, did the message get delivered? Did they open the email? Have they clicked on anything in the email? Are they consuming our content? And did they reply to a message? That's like the next 5 levels of observation to determine whether somebody is a five-star or a viable chicken in our world. And so in our first 100 hours, the goal is to status everybody. So we can tell through that first 100 hours whether somebody we put them in one of 5 categories. They're either now, meaning we've had a conversation with them, they're ready to go, we're moving forward, or they are nurture, meaning we've engaged with them. They're a five-star prospect. It's not right now. Maybe they're going to sell in the spring or at some future point, but we've been engaged with them and we know we've got a real person there. We put active as the third category. Through observation, we can see they're opening and clicking on things. And that's going to be those three. It's about right now, the way it kind of works out would be about 5%, about 15%. So 20% would be either now or nurture. And then we've got another 30% or so, just over 50% that are active. And then the next level is sleeping, meaning we don't know whether they're opening anything or clicking on anything, but they've got a viable email address. Or the fifth is dead chickens, we call them, that they're, that they have unsubscribed or their email bounced or they told us, when we talked with them, they were mean or they didn't want to have anything to do with us. So we can just put them in the dead chicken file and spend all our time nurturing the viable prospects. That's how we look at that.
I
And
like how
for
you
the
package everything. Like, you obviously think things through at a high level and practice and test. And then once you've worked out an idea, you package it in a way that helps you show it to others.
Hmm.
That's
That's
something
true.
that's, kind of like a superpower, the way that you explain things.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm ADD and I've had to simplify things. So you look at all of the pattern of everything that I've invented is simplifier things.
yeah,
Like the having an opt-in page that all somebody can do is leave their name and their email address. That's a simplification. I don't have to build a big complex landing page.
yeah.
The simpler, the better. The 9-word email. You don't have to write a long copy thing. It's just 9 words. We can send that out. It's so funny, but
I'm curious for you, like when let's say they're a prospect, like it's a 5-star prospect, but they're not now. What
mhm.
do you normally say is like your ideal nurture for a not now prospect that is a 5-star prospect?
Well, so luckily in real estate, we've got market data, which is constantly changing. So we've got the opportunity to um, continue to keep in touch with people with updates. So we send out a weekly or daily, depending on how many people you have and how much you're into it. But at least a weekly, we call a market watch email
Yeah.
with all the updates of all the new homes that have come on the market in their price range and uh, sending that out to the goal of everything that we're doing in that is to establish a brand in people's minds. And I have a little different definition for brand because I've never heard one that made any sense. Everybody's wildly varied on what their definition of branding is. So mine is, when I think about it, that the only practical reason to establish a brand is that it influences somebody's decisions. And so I realized that the acronym that fits that is that what we're trying to establish is a buying reflex affecting now decisions. That's the outcome when you've established a brand.
Yeah.
And you look at when we hear people talk about brand, they'll point to Coca-Cola or Budweiser as like the widest, deepest level of brand. They got the biggest brands in the world. And I thought there was something very impactful. Do you guys know who Ray Dalio is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, so Ray Dalio did a video on YouTube that kind of the economy explained, right? So it was
Yeah, I
like
remember that
he
one.
talks about the market for something
Yeah.
as really just an aggregate number to represent these micro transactions between one person and another person. So the auto market, for instance, is just an aggregate number to calculate how many microtransactions were there where one person bought one car. So if there's, 150 million of those transactions and the average price is $10,000, that's $15 billion, size of the auto market. That's what they're saying. And I started thinking, that's what we talk about Budweiser as a brand, that what they've done is they've established in the minds of beer drinkers a reflexive association of their brand to that decision, that moment. So when somebody walks into a bar and they say, "What do you have? Give me a Bud."
Yeah, but
That's
it's almost like a step further than that when they imagine someone else seeing them with a Bud. Like the same reason that someone would buy a Lexus or a Mercedes. Part of the
yeah.
reason you buy it is so other people see you stepping out of it.
Yes, and that's been established by, the building the foundation of why this is the right decision for me. And then it's reflexive when it's time to get a new car. I'm going to get a Lexus, or I'm going to get a BMW, or I'm going to get a Tesla, or whatever it is. And it's the same thing when people are deciding who's going to list our house. It's like there's going to be a buying reflex. And if their mother is a realtor or their brother or best friend, that's the reflex is their, oh, I don't even need to think about that. That my friend is going to list my house or my neighbor or, whatever is in that thing. But what we're trying to do is you don't have to establish a brand on scope. You can focus on depth. And, I don't know this to be true, but, I imagine nationally or internationally, Budweiser has an amazing brand. But I imagine that in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, somewhere, there's a microbrewery that brews a Puxatawny Pale Ale. And within 10 miles of that brewery, if you ask people, what would you like? There's some number of people that their buying reflex is going to be, I'll have a Puxatawny Pale. Well, you guys are from Canada. Let's say Sleeman's in Guelph, right? Same idea that nobody in America knows what Sleeman's is, but in certain areas, that's the beer, right? So that's the good news is that you can establish the brand through depth, and it doesn't have to be through scope. That's really all it is.
Oh, I'm hoping that we can get tactical a little bit here as well,
Sure.
because I like the idea of talking about these concepts, but also, when we think about agents out there that are trying to make marketing happen, a lot of it
Mhm.
is event-based marketing.
Yeah.
So, having looked at your strategies previously, but not necessarily developed them,
Mhm.
I have a real estate team that's running pretty close to 1.5 for listing multiplier,
Okay.
which means that I have a lot of potential.
Hmm.
When you think about like what your moves would be, and just to give people context on this, every time we take a listing, we sell half a house more, is what it means when I say I have 1.5. So every time we take two listings, we actually sell three houses based on the efforts that we do around the attention grabbing event that is a property hitting the market.
Hmm.
So we're
Yep.
playing in a few different pools, right? And I think that you talk about, is it five different potentials?
Yeah, so you look at this. So every time you get a listing, uh, this is good to kind of go through this because every time you get a listing, it comes with five opportunities. And the one is that to get the listing sold, which is what everybody focuses on. Put it in the MLS, price it right, and it'll sell. That's kind of the thing. That's one transaction. But you also have the opportunity to find the buyer yourself for that house, which will give you another transaction wherever that's allowed. The third situation is that you can find a buyer who buys another property. They don't like that one particularly, but they like one around the street. And you met them because they came to your open house or they called on your ad or whatever it was, but you met them because of the marketing for that listing. You've got the opportunity to get another listing in that neighborhood or from one of the buyers who is needing to sell their house to buy that house or to buy another house. And you've got a chance to get a referral from the seller all during the transaction, all during the time that you're in there. So, knowing those five things are possible, what we do is we look to help people establish this. We look at the last 10 listings that you had, and we say, how many out of 50 possible points did you get on the last 10 listings? And most of the time when I do it, you're right in the zone that most people, when I present this to a group, it's the first time they've heard about it, it's typically between 8 and 15 points that they get out of 50 possible points. So let's say it's 12 that they got. We take that, we divide that by 10 to get their index, like your golf handicap or your bowling average, right? So that means that on the last 10 listings, you averaged 1.2 transactions for every listing that you took. Now, if we just attach money to this, let's use a $10,000 average side as the value, which is probably pretty fair, that you made $120,000 on the last 10 listings, but you lost $380,000 by not getting those other 38 points that you could have had. And one of the saddest things that I hear is people often say, well, our market's high, we price it right. All of our listings sell in, a couple of weeks for 98% of asking price. So I don't have to do just listed cards, or I don't have to do Infobox flyers. They think about it with a level of arrogance that is, I don't have to do that because I just price it right and put it in, and the market's hot and they all sell.
It's like saying, I
They
don't
think
have to grow my business.
they think they're winning. They think they're winning because they price it right and everything works out. But this is where the big opportunity is, right? Like what's the difference? Our clubhouse leaders in GoGo Agent are at 3.5. So you look at the things and you start to say, how much of an impact would that have if you made $35,000 per listing instead of 10,000?
Yeah, and that's the thing that we're all kind of trying to solve, and it seems like you kind of
Mhm.
have there. So
Yeah.
the first thing I'm going to tell you is all my listings sell. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, the but right now my market is pretty hot here in Edmonton, Alberta,
Yeah.
and we're basically scoring pretty high. Out of like 49 listings taken this year, we've only had one where the listing didn't sell, and then we relisted it and sold it.
Hmm.
So scoring on that side seems to be working pretty good.
Hmm.
Then helping that seller, like
Hmm.
go out into the market. Well, a lot of people kind of got trapped in Edmonton real estate because the
Hmm.
property prices were going down.
And that doesn't count, by the way. Taking the seller to buy another house, that doesn't count for your listing multiplier index.
Okay, so we got to take that
That's
one off the board.
absolutely.
Okay.
That's we're talking about only the activity that comes from that. Now, we also have a buyer multiplier index that
Okay.
because each of those you've got the opportunity to find the house that's not on the market for them to buy. So you got a chance to get a listing, like getting them, introducing them to an off-market thing.
Hmm.
So many of these have the same thing, right?
I see what you mean there. So then
Hmm.
when we talk about like when I think about a strategy um in order to find a buyer to this property or to find a buyer to something else, I would
Yeah.
think that that kind of hinges on coming soon.
Well, it could, or it could be. I mean, you look at it that the best thing I say to people is imagine what if you were a for sale by owner? What if you had an exclusive listing and you could only sell it yourself? You couldn't put it on the MLS. What would you do to sell that property? Do you think you could do a better job than the seller could do on their own? A lot of times that's just a prop that people, the fact that you have a real estate license and you can put it in MLS is the only difference between what you're doing and what a seller could do themselves, right?
Mhm.
But if you start thinking about how can I get the word out about this listing? Like we do something we call a 100-hour open house, where we'll run instead of a open house on in physical, we'll run a Facebook open house, and we have a you know uh, one of the things we have in GoGuage we'll call an instant open house. And it's a specific landing page for a specific property, which is we do it as a lead generator, right? So if you run for um, you know $25 a day for 4 days for 100-hour or 5-day type of thing, we're going to spend a couple $100 or $100 for getting people there, and we get the leads sometimes for $2 or $3. Sometimes, depending on the appeal of the house or whatever, you generate all of these people now who are interested in the house that you can then invite to come by and take a look at the house on the weekend. And now you're never having an open house where you're just holding it open and hoping that somebody's going to come in. We've spent that time having it open all week on Facebook, generating people who are interested in that, and then and going for it,
Yeah. So we have a question here from Trisha. Where do you advertise the 100-hour open house? Which you did.
Facebook and Instagram. Do lead ads on Facebook, right? So you can I think in Canada still you can only do 15-mile radius. Is that
Yeah.
still true?
Yeah,
So you
25 kilometers.
There's some
right.
workarounds,
So
but you have to plan ahead.
got it. But if it's a specific house, it's still got to
Yeah.
be 15 miles.
Yeah.
So you just put that 15-mile bubble, show the house, do a select lead ad on the thing, and go from there. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
just
kind of
on a tactical level, like how do you feel lead ad versus landing page? Like, do you have scenarios you use one versus the other? If like you're running Facebook
yeah.
ads, it's
If I'm
always
doing Facebook, I always use lead ads because
yeah,
it's just so uh it's so effortless and
yeah.
yeah.
That's what we
And
do. That's
they've
true.
figured it out.
Yeah, I always like to see if anyone else has come up with a different reason, but yeah, for us, like 99% of the time, it's lead ads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's one of the things is getting out there, but also another thing is orchestrating, telling the story about that listing. Like, why would someone, you creating a compelling environment for that listing rather than just the thing. If you can tell the story of why somebody is selling, why they're why this is a difference. That makes a big difference as well.
yeah,
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So getting in tune with your market, especially with how people feel about it, maybe their
yeah,
perception. Like right now, I think maybe some people's perception in Canada has changed because of the Bank of Canada announcement yesterday, where they
what
dropped
happened?
by half a
Lowered
percent,
rate? Yeah,
yeah,
is that
right?
good? Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. What
Yeah.
we're down a full point now since they started lowering.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Hmm.
I just gotta see that translates to activity on the market.
Uh-huh.
Always the
Yeah,
fun.
exactly. I was just
Yeah,
looking to see if I could add something to show you, perfect example. Oh, you know what? I've got a perfect one. So I'm selling my office building. So this is there's a great opportunity there. I don't have Facebook um, on my desktop here, but if either of you have Facebook and you're my friend, if you go
yeah,
there, you'll see there's a video and an ad. You can maybe share our screen, and I'll
yeah.
walk you through how to use a story as an example of how to make your different things. Oh, look at Charlotte just asked, can you give me an example of a story? I'll give you a perfect example of a story. Here we go.
Yeah, I got it here. So
Okay,
the
so
one
if you
that you like
scroll down,
mentioned, Winter Haven Friends.
attention Winter Haven friends. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been running an ad for this as well. This is my own thing. So there it is. So attention Winter Haven friends, I need to sell my Orchid Springs live work building in the next 3 weeks, and I'm willing to sell it for $10,000 below its current appraised value. I have a 2 unit mixed use building in Orchid Springs that I've owned since 2006. It's been a great building for us. I've used the downstairs unit as an office and the upstairs as a writing space. The upstairs unit is a 1 bedroom apartment with a full kitchen, bath, and lots of closet space. The light is fantastic and it's right across from a treed park, so the views are lovely and green. We fully renovated the downstairs unit into an office space, beautiful big glass double doors, lots of windows, make it bright and airy. There's a kitchenette and a two-piece bath. We basically took it down to the studs and built the office with new drywall, ceilings, lighting, bathroom, kitchen, carpet, and tile. There's a big main room and a spacious private office. This will be perfect for any professional service. Here's my dilemma. And I'll explain the key points of this, but I have an investment opportunity I'd like to take advantage of before the end of the year, but I need the money from this building to do it. If I had more time, I'd do some of the minor repairs and polish it up so the building looks its best. I'd list it with a top realtor, expose it fully to the market. Before I do that, I thought I'd come here and see if I could find someone who might know someone looking for an opportunity like this, and we could both save some time and money. The building's appraised for 250. It would probably sell for more money on the open market. It's a great opportunity to get started in the property market. It'd be perfect for someone to live upstairs and rent out the office to cover much of the mortgage. I have a mortgage broker running up some numbers as I write this, but even financing the full amount of today's interest rate would be under 1,600 per month, and you could rent out the office for over 1,000. There are a couple of things that need to be done, like some minor repairs to the outdoor stair railing. I already have an estimate for it, and we can work that in. Plus, there's a spot in the back corner ceiling of the upstairs apartment that needs to be repaired. We had some minor water damage from one of the hurricanes that needs to be fixed cosmetically. Aside from that, there's nothing needs to be done to enjoy the property. There are opportunities to add value upstairs if you want to update the kitchen and the bath, but it's completely fine and functional as is. I put together a website with pictures and more details at 300 Martinique, so you can see what it looks like, or message me for more details. And then I just did a quick walkthrough video, explaining, narrating the kind of a guided tour of it.
Perfect.
And that's that. So I've been running that as an ad. There's actually audio with that too. But the idea is I've been running those as a little Facebook ad and generating leads for people who are looking for a building like that. So I'm meeting a couple tomorrow who are looking for the building. But part of the thing, like what makes this kind of approach work, is that you tell the truth about the situation, right? Like I'm giving it, it feels like it sounds like all logical and great reasons why I'm doing this, what the thing is.
Yeah.
I've just had it appraised. I'm willing to sell it for below the appraisal, and here's why. And those kind of things, I've used that format a lot to uncover, buyers that are ready,
We
and that's it.
actually, I
You know,
used that concept after hearing you say it for a client because they had a listing that like a year before the garage had blown up in a meth lab and
wow.
they tried to advertise the home and like a lot of the comments were like, is that the meth lab house? So we
That's so funny.
scrapped the house and then the ad said, are you up for a challenge? We have an 8 poop emoji home for you. This home blew up in a meth lab explosion. Are you up for the
Uh-huh.
challenge? And it's like tag your contractors and friends who might be up for the challenge. It's priced
Right.
accordingly. It needs work. Let's go. And like
Yeah.
people start tagging their contractors or tag their agents, and they like one of those
Yeah.
ended up coming and buying the house. It
Hmm.
was great. But the 8 poop emoji home really made it stood out. Like half the comments were
Yeah.
people just kind of laughing at the poop emoji in the ad copy.
Hmm.
But that one worked unbelievably well. It was right after I was at a session. I think it was when you came and spoke at a Kuzmich mastermind I was at.
Oh,
And,
okay. Wow.
yeah, and I was like, I can use that for this specific problem I'm having right now, and it killed
Hmm.
it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So those kind of strategies of, if you can get your sellers on board with telling a winning story, and I say there's differences, there's winning stories and losing stories. And often we're taught that we want to kind of keep our cards close to our chest and we don't want to like show any weakness or do anything like that. But often it's like, when you're playing a game with as a kid with your little brother or whatever, and your parents like give you, you let him win kind of thing, and they're winking at you, and the brother feels good that he got a win, but you know that you let him win. It's the same kind of thing with the buyers, right? Everybody wants to win, but a losing story for a seller is we're not giving the place away, or we don't have to move. If they
Yeah.
want it, they'll pay our price, or our house is the nicest one on the block. It's nicer than any of the ones down the street. Those are all posturing and putting yourself in a confrontational situation. But when you put down your sword and you say to this, we need to sell our house in the next 30 days, and we're willing to sell it for below its market value. And you can use market value as a great thing because that who knows what market value is, but it's the idea that you can build this story into it that you're saying, hey, my name's, Dean Jackson, and we've always wanted to live in the country. And the other day, my wife and I found the perfect house for us. But here's our dilemma. We need to sell our house in order to get this house. And we really want it. So we're willing to sell it for this, and then get people all together at the same time. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, it's the whole psychology of why people often underprice a property and get multiple offers because market value always finds itself.
Yeah.
You know, mhm.
I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see. So, kind of taking these pieces together, you're using a compelling story to
Yeah.
drive in to a landing page, and then when you click on that, it takes you to an instant open house,
Hmm.
and that's where you have to do name and email to go any further.
That's exactly right.
So
And
now
so
you've
rather than,
captured.
we're not adding any new information, my philosophy on the landing pages is that it's a bookmark to let you know you're in the right place. So whatever got you there, you were coming. It's almost like we did it to represent exactly what would happen if you were driving by the property. All it is, we have a big hero shot of the front of the property that you see, and it says "Welcome to 22 Greystone" or 300 Martinique or whatever the thing is, and it just says, instant, take an instant tour and leave your name and email and maybe phone number, and come on in is what the button says. And that's really the same that somebody would do if they were discovering the house through uh, seeing it on the street. You'd come in and you'd open up the front door, and somebody was going to greet you at the open house and have you register to come in or whatever. Everybody's used to that. And it's okay if they don't. You just have to be okay with that.
And
Mhm.
once you get them to register, like what does that tactically look like? That, or in your sense, like an ideal world, what would that tactically
Mhm.
look like once you got their email? How are you kind
Yeah.
of doing that first 100 hours?
Well, so the same thing would be, we'd initially send them the info. What we do with the instant open house is we create a property PDF for them that we can email that's like got a cover and pictures it's all just basic information. And we send that to people by email, give them a chance to download that or click on it to open it. And then we would send a email or text the next day and say, hey, Andrew, I'm meeting some people over at the house this weekend. Would you like to join us? That's it. We just want to see, are they willing to engage? Are they interested in seeing that house? Are they,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And we've got now prospects. We just kind of adopt them uh, into our pond there, you know. I always use
I
all
like how you explain this at an in-person mastermind. I haven't seen you explain it a ton online, and I probably just missed it because I'm sure you have.
Mhm.
But the concept you explained to me one time of the email baristas.
Yeah, well, that's where, you know, in terms of the farmers, you know, like you don't, you can have, we've got, you know, people who man the inbox so you're not constantly, you know, doing all of the things. We have email baristas who are handling the inbox, replying to people, and
Yeah.
so there's always somebody kind of minding the store, you know?
Yeah. And
Mhm.
what percent, like, where do you try to get or like recommend agents to get on the phone? Like, how much are they doing over email till they push to like get someone on the phone?
Oh, the phone's the last thing. Like people think that getting somebody on the phone that's like they fetishize that. That if they're not willing to get on the phone, they're not the thing. But listen, nobody likes to get on the phone anyway. You know, I mean, it's like you think about yourself, why can't we just text and you know, have that thing? You can bond with somebody, you can find out if somebody's a five-star prospect by text. And if it makes sense to talk on the phone, that's fine too. Now, if you're good, then I caveat that because some people are great and comfortable and engaging and good on the phone, and some people are not. And sometimes you're actually hurting yourself by trying to get people on the phone because it's awkward.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who's good on the phone, that could be an advantage. But even when you're on the phone, the purpose is not to convince them. We're not the different way that we treat them is to I take it that we want to treat people like they are five-star prospects until they prove that they aren't, versus treating them like they're not five-star prospects and having them jump through hoops to prove that they are. And it's the Pygmalion effect, you know, it's like however you treat them is what's going to manifest, you know? So we're not trying to like qualify them or ask this, you know, bunch of questions. You're trying to bond. And we often ask if we're calling somebody, then what we're looking to establish, number one, is we're looking to see if they're five-star prospects. But if you remember the progression, it's like the staged lighting at the drag races. It's one light comes on, then the next light, and then the next light. So if they answer the phone, they're willing to engage in a dialogue. If they don't, you know, blow you off right out of the gate, what we're listening for is the whether the first words out of their mouth, you're going to know this in the first 15 seconds of talking with somebody, are they coming through a smiling, receptive face or are they frowning and rejecting face?
Yeah.
Right. So if we say, and never, these are kind of like some, you know, the approach that we take is never to say something that you signed up for my this, right? Is the
Yeah.
thing where you're pointing the finger and you're accusing them of this because that may not always be true or they may be able to deny that. But if you instead point the finger at you and say, I sent you the beach condo price report by email, that's 100% true. They can't argue with that. They can't reject that thought. I sent you the beach condo price report. I wanted to make sure you got it. Do you need to find a condo right away or have you got some time to plan?
Yeah.
That is really like those are things that are giving people an option versus asking them a yes or no question, you know? Are
I
you
like
thinking
that.
about buying a no?
Yeah. Uh,
You signed up for the thing. I don't remember signing up for any, I didn't sign up for anything.
yeah.
Never have that opportunity to reject, you know?
Because we got 10 minutes left, I know you have to
All
go.
right. Yeah,
I think that we kind of an interesting speed run because we do this sometimes on the show where we take
sure.
Taylor's business and then we'll just be like, all right, let's rip it apart and then try and see where we can improve it.
Uh-huh.
So you see Taylor comes to you and says, my listing multiplier index score is 1.5. How would you go
Stop.
about
That-
getting that up?
He's already shaking his head because I was counting people that went and bought other things.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
not
now
actually
he's
one
got
and
to
a half.
He's saying I'm
recalculate,
lower than that,
recalibrate.
So we're gonna say it's
and I would
one.
agree.
We've already lowered his score, so we've already ripped it a little bit more.
So I
How
feel as
like
though I'm selling the listing well. And I think that
Uh-huh.
what every agent would want to talk to you about is how do we get more listings? And
Hmm.
that's a big part of the listing
yeah,
multiplier,
like how
right?
do you
Get
leverage
listings
the
nearby.
existing
Yeah,
listing?
sure. So when you look at it, okay, so the three opportunities to get new listings because of a listing are that all eyes on you in the hot zone there of the 20 houses around that house, right? Five on each side, 10 across the street. We call that the hot zone, where you can see the whites of their eyes from the end of your driveway. Other than that, it kind of like gets less connected to that house, right? But if it's in the same townhouse complex or it's in the same neighborhood or gated community, there's some connection and relevance there. So letting people know, you're kind of educating those people all around. That's where the listings that you're trying to get are the next listing in the hot zone or on that street or in that neighborhood or complex. So you focus your attention on those. And
Yeah,
one of the things is just letting them know, observing, inviting them to come and see that one. Right. That's one opportunity. All the buyers that you're getting inquiries for may have a house to sell to buy that one, especially if you're higher up on the bell curve there, that you've got somebody that needs to sell a house to get to one. But then you've also got opportunities this is a sleeper one, but if you can find all the people with the identical model to that house or to that condo or to that townhouse that you've got, and they're the most relevant ones to the thing, right? Like I remember I grew up in Georgetown, and there was some builders, all the things had names. I grew up in a cardinal model, right? And there were dozens of these cardinal models all through the whole neighborhood where I lived. And if you list a cardinal model, to be able to send something to all the other cardinal models to let them know, hey, I thought you'd like to see this. I just listed a house just like yours. I'm having an open house on Saturday if you'd like to pop by and see what they've done with it. Now they know you exist. They know you've got a cardinal model. They're curious about what that's like. And then when it sells, you're able to do that. And then when the other, if you think about the, when you connect with somebody like that, that every time a cardinal model sells, that you're the one that they think of. That's kind of how we look at it. Those are great opportunities for multiplying. I don't know whether you do Infobox flyers, whether you do just listed cards, whether you do instant open house, whether all of those things are what lead to all these multipliers.
Yeah, so we've definitely done some things with QR codes to
Yeah.
get traffic from the sign. I haven't actually done info boxes,
Mhm.
but you've talked about that a couple of times today. It sounds pretty
Yeah.
important.
Yes, absolutely it is. It's a sleeper. It's literally one of the lowest cost lead generators because you're getting most likely some of those neighbors that live in the neighborhood that are out walking their dogs or walking by and slink in and take one of those, and they're curious, and now you've bonded. They're watching you. How are you doing? How are you doing marketing this? Or somebody's driving through the neighborhood and they see this house. It's a very easy way to just take this, and now they've got
you just do like a
they've
stack
got
in a
all the
box
information.
of like
Yeah,
basically like the feature sheet.
it would do something a little better than a feature sheet, but
Yeah.
like but the job of work of the Infobox flyer is not to sell the house
Yeah.
and not to give them all the information. That's what people load up. We use it as a placeholder to say, hey, here's the house and it's this much money, and you can get all the pictures and details use the URL of the house, 22greystone.com. And that's so the only purpose of the Infobox flyer is to get somebody to go to the instant open house. And the only purpose of that landing page is to say to say you're in the right place. Welcome to 22 Greystone. They see the picture on the cover. They see the picture on the page. Yep, you're in the right place. Come
Yeah.
on in.
Your info.
Leave your name and email. And there's, this is where I got this idea for that's the squeeze page model. Back then I realized that the more options that you have on a page, the less likely that somebody will take the option that you want them to, which is to leave their name and email. If there's any other things that they can click on and satisfy that curiosity, right? There's a Zeigarnik effect that's happening when they go there, and they're not getting any new information other than what they had on the piece of paper that brought them there. So they feel compelled to go next, or they have to question their sanity. Well, why did I come here if I didn't want what am I doing here?
There's a question here from Trisha. How do you reconnect with a potential client that you have lost touch with for a long period of time?
Is that a setup question? I like it. That sounds like so let's say, that sounds like the perfect lead in to a 9-word email.
Yeah.
Right? Like part of the thing, that's exactly it. Let's say somebody came into an open house, or they responded to one of your ads, or you were speaking with them at one point, but you never got out to look at homes with them, and it's 6 months later. The best thing to do is to just send them an email and say, "Hi, Andrew, are you still looking for a home in Georgetown?"
That is, and it works. Like,
That's it.
I have done that with so many clients. Like, because you actually gave me the concept of like the magic trick when a new client comes on. Like, do that thing that gets them results right away. And we're teaching them to do the 9-word email because right away it gets them appointments. Like, we're almost every single time. Anytime we send it to more than 100 people, we've booked at least one appointment for someone.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's because if you look at it, remember, everybody moves at that different pace along 100 weeks. And it wasn't now 6 months ago, but now it's now.
Yeah.
It might be time. Are you still looking for a house? Yes. As a matter of fact, we're ready right now.
All right, perfect. So I know we're coming up on time for you. So
Okay,
for people who want to reach out to you, learn more about you, learn from you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So all the real estate stuff is at listingagentlifestyle.com. That'd be the best place to start. We've got a book they can download. I do a podcast where each week we interview or brainstorm with one realtor applying all the listing agent lifestyle elements to their business.
Love it. Anything else?
That's
Any
awesome.
other thing for them to look at, or just send them to the one and then go?
Well, you can go there. Yeah. And all of those tools, everything that I talk about is at gogoagent.com. That's where I'm building our community of agents that are all applying those listing agent lifestyle elements to their business.
Love it. And
That's great. And I'm definitely going to head over there. This is something that's part of my 2025 plan. So I really appreciate you coming on. For those people that want more of this, there's a couple of websites that you can hit like that. This is Dean Jackson. And we really appreciate you coming in to talk about that major problem in everybody's life, which is that there's a misalignment and then the leads are shit.
appreciate it again, Dean. Every time I always enjoy it.
It's been fun, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Dean. See you later.
Bye.